Glass exploded across my lap before I could say a word. A flashlight handle punched through the driver window like a hammer, and the heat of a Texas afternoon rolled into the cab. I tasted copper. I blinked hard, and when my eyes found the face leaning in, the first thing I saw was not the badge. It was the certainty, the look of a man who has decided the story before the truth gets a line. He said out of the car. Now the gun was low but not asleep, and I lifted my hands, slow, fingers open, voice even, because calm is the last tool you put down when someone tries to take your dignity. I said, the engine is off. I am not a threat. I am Colonel Maya Ellison, United States Army, and the cuff clicked onto my wrist. Anyway, snapped to the steering wheel so tight my fingers went numb, you know what I mean? He called himself Sergeant Jax Harlan. He smelled like coffee left in a burner pot and a kind of anger that ages a man from the inside. He laughed when he read my name off the ID, smacked my mirror with his baton till it shattered, circled the Bronco like he owned the dust under it, radioed in like he was reading a joke. Female claims to be a colonel, possible stolen valor, send backup. And I sat there, steady blood sliding warm along my cheek. Apple Watch recording every insult, every lie, every strike, because when people behave like there is no record, you make one. Backup rolled up with the rookie, Riley Voss, cheek still round posture, trying to learn courage. He looked at me, saw the glass, the cuff, the blood, and you could watch his conscience wake. Sarge, policy says cameras on. He said it soft, and Harlan didn't even turn his head. Turn it off. Rookie command voice like a door slamming. Riley hesitated, touched the body. Cam like he was obeying, then left the small pen camera running in his vest pocket. And that was the first time that day someone chose the right kind of fear. Captain Lena Brooks arrived next desert sun hard on her shoulders, eyes taking in more than most. She saw the purple heart case on my seat, saw my hands raised and cuffed to a wheel, saw the smear of blood and the small shake. I keep hidden from anyone but my doctor, and she did not waste a second on his ego. Jax, what the hell are you doing? She said, and he tossed my ID on the hood like a receipt, following procedure, he said, and she reached in, popped the cuff, looked me in the eye. Colonel Ellison, I am Captain Brooks. Are you hurt? Just my dignity, I said, and for a heartbeat the desert got quiet like an apology. Then my phone buzzed on the ground where it had fallen. Dr. Elijah Grant, on speaker voice, like a night shift anchor. Maya, can you hear me? The Pentagon's been notified. Stay calm. And Harlan flinched like the word Pentagon had teeth, he muttered. She's bluffing, but the truth doesn't blink. He smashed the passenger window. Anyway, rummaged my duffel, mocked a bottle of PTSD meds like the label was a punchline, crushed them under his boot, said, Take your pills, Colonel, and I said evenly. I take them so I don't do to men like you what I was trained to do. He froze for a beat, then slammed the door and told the radio to send backup again. And when he finally drove off, tires spitting dust on my boots, Captain Brooks stood there with me and said, We will make this right, and I said we will make it known. The next morning I walked into Lockhart Police Headquarters, clean and pressed ribs, sore face stitched by the tiniest cuts you only notice in a bathroom mirror. The lobby smelled like old paper and sweat. The desk sergeant pretended not to know my name, said my vehicle was under investigation, and through a wire glass window. I watched Harlan in the evidence bay, pacing around my Bronco like a dog around a steak, ripping open gear. He had no warrant to touch, prying a side compartment, pulling my sealed armory case, grinning when he found the service pistol still zip-tied and logged illegal transport. He mumbled to himself like he needed the audio for a lie later, and Riley stood by the doorway, pale voice, small but steady. That's a military-issued weapon. It's registered. She has authorization. And Jax looked at him like a nail, looks at a hammer. You questioning me again? Rookie just saying it's legal, sir. And Jax bagged it anyway. Not anymore, he said, like power was a synonym for truth. Then he found a sealed envelope. Bright red letters, warning classified, tore it open with a grin, filmed my deployment orders like a trophy, laughed under his breath. Guess the fake colonel's going overseas. And for a second, something flickered in his eyes when he touched the folded flag and the memorial booklet with 12 names. Maybe shame, maybe memory, but it left him faster than it came. Outside, Captain Brooks told me what I already knew. He has no warrant, no cause, no soul today. File federal, she said. Here he is protected, and I asked, "Will you stand with me when I do?" And she said yes. And that word is heavier than a badge on the days that matter. You know what I mean? Chief Marcus Reed arrived with his tie, loosened voice, trying to be polite. "Colonel Ellison, this was a misunderstanding. You'll have your car tomorrow. We'll clean this up quietly." And I stepped into his space 1 inch and said it was assault and false imprisonment. "We are not cleaning. We are answering." Then Dr. Grant called again with the kind of calm that makes grown men rethink their volume. "The Deputy Chief of Staff is aware if she is not released within 10 minutes, military police will be at your door." Reed's color drained. He played at control, then suspended Jax for optics 30 days, and the building buzzed with new fear because everyone in there knew the difference between a mistake and a habit. I wish the story ended there. Paperwork, policy, apology. But men like Harlan do not end clean, they end loud. And that afternoon he planted a GPS tracker under my Bronco with a smile he earned from 100 other people's bad days. And by the next day he was tailing me out on FM 1327, black Charger tucked back like a shadow with a grudge. The road was a blade between fields, sun, a white coin, and a bleached sky. I could hear Dr. Grant's voice in my head, talking breath and focus and choosing the next minute over the last rage. I left a message for Captain Brooks, told her I was headed back to Fort Cavazos that evening, and in the mirror the Charger came up steady like a storm front that has already decided where it's going to hit. The first impact snapped my seatbelt into my collarbone. The Bronco fishtailed gravel sprayed the inside of the windshield like salt, I whispered. "Not again," and feathered the wheel. The second hit shoved the breath out of me, and the third clipped the rear corner, spun me off the shoulder, and the world rolled twice. Windows coughing. Their last airbags wilted. I hung there a second in the upside down, quiet, and then dropped knees in the dirt, mouth full of dust and blood. And here he came, boots crunching, pistol out, yelling. I humiliated him, yelling about badges and pensions and how my name ruined his life. "Say you're not a colonel," he screamed. "Say I outrank you." And I laughed. Yeah, that happened. And said you outrank no one who knows who they are, which only made him swing harder. Pistol butt to the cheek. Lights popping in my head, and still training is a muscle memory that doesn't need permission. I scooped a fistful of dirt and safety glass, waited for the second lunge, and heard it faint at first. Then undeniable rotor blades, a Blackhawk coming in low like a promise. He looked up once and said, "No," like he was trying to negotiate with physics. I threw the dirt and glass in his eyes. He screamed. The pistol fell. I took his wrist, thumbed the joint, heard bone give, and we went down in a knot of blood and grit. He dragged a knife out with his good hand, slashed my forearm, heat shot to my shoulder. I took that hand too. Twisted the knife, found the sand, and then the downdraft hit us like a storm. Soldiers shouting, ground team rushing. Riley breaking cover behind a mesquite with his gun out and his voice shaking on the radio to Lena. He'd been streaming the whole thing to her private feed hold position. She said MPs in 60 seconds, and Jax tried to crawl and swear his way out of a reality that had finally brought witnesses, but there is no exit when the truth has more eyes than you have lies. They cuffed him. I collapsed to a knee. "Doctor." Grant ran to me with a medkit. "Stay with me, Maya," he said. "You did everything right, and I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt." I managed to smile because I had promised myself I would not let that man be the last story my face told. And when the Blackhawk lifted, the last thing I saw on the ground was Jax kicking at the dust like he could bruise the desert into agreeing with him. By sunset, the video was in federal hands because Captain Brooks hit send and did not flinch. Riley handed over his footage and did not hide. The Department of Justice opened a civil rights investigation before the ink dried on the press release. 47 old complaints floated up out of the dark with the same signature on them. And Chief Reed went on TV to say zero tolerance with a shaking voice, then resigned and left a vacuum full of should-have-knowns. The town filled it with protests and vigils and hard conversations that make neighbors avoid eye contact for a week and then look each other in the eye again anyway. Court wasn't cinematic, it was fluorescent, it was slow, it was the sound of throat clearing and the scrape of chairs. It was also the place I got to be whole in public, and that mattered more than I expected. Riley went first. Hands folded too tight, voice steady, he admitted. Turning off his body cam, he admitted turning on the hidden one. He said, "I didn't protect her because she's a colonel. I protected her because she's a person." And the jury leaned into that because it was simple and true. Captain Brooks laid out the pattern, the buried files, the times she had been told to let it slide and finally decided she would not. And when I took the stand, I did not make a speech. I told them what glass sounds like when it hits your lap, what a cuff feels like when it bites. How small a person can be made to feel by a man who confuses a badge with a crown. How large a person can become when she refuses to let that be the last line, the prosecutor asked. Why did he stop you? And I said, because my presence broke his illusion of power, because he saw a black woman in command, and decided it was a crime. You could feel the room shift a degree, like a door that has been stuck for years just moved. Then Jax talked, because men like him cannot leave a microphone alone. His lawyer begged for facts. He reached for fantasies. He said my ID could be fake. He said the medal could be bought. He said we set him up. The prosecutor asked, people like her means soldiers, right? And he choked on the line between what he thought and what the room would allow. The jury left, came back in 3 hours, guilty on all counts. Assault under color of law, attempted murder, obstruction. The judge gave him 22 years with no parole and told him, you didn't lose control, you gave it away, he shouted as they dragged him out. That I was just a headline, and I said headlines fade, change doesn't, because it doesn't. After that, life didn't become a movie. No swelling strings, just quieter nights, steadier breaths. Captain Brooks became Chief Brooks and gutted a rotten tree to save a forest. Riley took over an integrity unit and reopened cases people prayed would stay buried. I got moved to a brigade command, and then with Dr. Grant, we built training called The Cost of Silence. We run it for new soldiers for departments that will have us. We show the clip where calm beats cruelty. We pause where one choice becomes 2 lives. We talk about power as a loan from the people and what it means to pay the interest on time. And some nights I stand on the balcony at Fort Cavazos and watch the flag lift in a wind that doesn't owe any of us anything. And I think about the rookies learning to carry a badge without losing a soul, and the kids in my brigade learning to carry rank without forgetting to kneel when a mother needs help with a flat tire in a church lot. And I think maybe the only real victory is a day that never turns into a story at all. If you want to know whether I ever opened the letter Jax mailed from prison, I didn't. I fed it into a small fire and watched his name curl away to ash, because not every apology is about the person who earned it. Sometimes it's just another way to keep your name in someone else's mouth, and I am tired of tasting him there, you know what I mean? Still, I don't tell you this to settle anything for you. Some of you will say, forgiveness is the higher road. Some of you will say, punishment is the only language power respects. I won't argue either side into submission. I will tell you this, I am not a hero. I am a person who refused to be small in the moment. A man tried to make me disappear, and in a just country that wouldn't be brave, it would be normal. So let's build that country. One rookie who leaves his camera on. One captain who refuses the quiet fix. One chief who steps aside when the mirror won't lie anymore. One judge who speaks steel. One doctor who answers at midnight. One colonel who breathes on 4 and holds on 4 and releases on 6 until the truth gets heard. That's my story told plain. No violin, just the sound of glass cuffs, rotors a gavel, and a crowd that finally looked up. And here's where I leave you with the part that keeps the comments section honest. Tell me what you see here and what you don't. Where is the line between authority and abuse? What would you have done on that roadside, in that evidence bay, in that courtroom? And what have you already seen in your life that looked too much like this? Drop it below. Push back if you need to teach, if you can argue, if you must. But don't be quiet. And if you believe power is a promise, not immunity, hit like, subscribe. Share this with the one person who still thinks the story is different when it happens to someone they love. I'll be reading, and I'll meet you in the replies.